Guys, Photoshop Hustler here, and today I have some really amazing news for you. As you remember, I made before the 100k giveaway, which was editing the photos that you sent to me. As you can see, I got around 60 photos here, and it was really so hard for me to decide which photo I will choose to edit. First, I started by deciding that I will edit 5 of your photos online so you can see what's gonna happen, and then I decided that I will edit 10 of your photos, but then the video was so lengthy. So what I decided to do is that right now, I'll show you how I edited 5 of your photos. And meanwhile, the 60 photos that you submitted to me, I'm editing all of them and sending them back to you. And that's why it took me so long, almost 2 weeks, to be able to edit your photos. So if you're watching this video right now and if you have submitted a photo for me to edit, you gotta check your email because I've sent you the edited photo. Some people actually submitted their photos to the wrong email. I wrote the right email, but some people submitted to the other email, so these photos were neglected. And please guys, for the people who keep sending me messages that they want me to edit their photos, it's really so hard and so time consuming to be able to download every photo that you send to me, and then I'll have to edit it and give it back to you. So every now and then I'll be doing a giveaway like this one where I'll accept all your photos and I'll edit them and I'll give them back. But please don't keep on sending me that you want me to edit your photos. So 5 photos right now will be edited live. I chose these 5 specifically because every one of them showed something different and I wanted to show different techniques of editing for you guys. So let's jump to the computer and see what's gonna happen. So this is the first photo. It's a wedding photo, so this is like the only wedding photo I've got. I'll bring the ruler by pressing Ctrl R, and as you can see, it's definitely not straightened out. These things right here, it's not like the one holding the camera, it was not completely balanced, and we have a lot of distractions, a lot of different colors right and left. So the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get rid of all distractions. So I'm gonna take my polygonal lasso tool. I'm gonna start by going here around the hair. You gotta be careful when doing hair because it's hard to cut. So I'm gonna do something like that. Then I'm gonna add a new layer. I'm gonna take the clone stamp tool. I'm gonna make it that it's current and below, so it reads from the current layer and whatever is below of that. And then I'm gonna hold Alt to sample a point from here, and then I'm just gonna paint it over there. I'm gonna keep on doing that until I completely get rid of this part. Okay, so now we have a problem. We got rid of the wood as well, so I'm gonna take the eraser tool and I'm just gonna erase from that layer the part that I didn't want to be erased. So we're back with the wood we had there. Okay, let's do the same on the other side. And on a new layer, I'm gonna clone stamp. Actually guys, I'm sorry if I had you like to tilt your head or have to tilt your phone, but I promise this will be the last time because this video is going both to YouTube and Instagram, so I had to make it in the landscape orientation. But the next, like later on, I'm not gonna do this again. I'm gonna stick to the portrait. So you're holding your phone and you're seeing the video. Okay, so now we're done with that part. I always like to do this, like I flip my screen back and front so I can see better what's happening. So now I'll just use the crop tool and I'm gonna crop this photo a little bit from here so that we get rid of like the guy standing and the blue color we had and all the distractions. Also, I don't want this type of distraction, so I'm gonna add a new layer, also clone stamp here and there. And when you are on the edges, you have to clone stamp from the edge so nothing goes wrong. And I guess we're done with the right side and also with the left side. And now we got rid of a lot of distractions. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a new layer, hold Control Alt and Shift, which is Command Option and Shift if you're using Mac, then press E. So now we merged everything we did on a new layer, so we don't need these anymore. We just keep them just in case. So now I'm gonna go to Filter, Camera Raw Filter. Okay, so now we have the camera raw. So the first thing I want to do, I don't want to have any blown highlights because some parts are too bright. So I'm gonna pull the highlights down. So we bring back some of the detail and the dark parts and the hairs and everything, because some details on the hair are missing. So I'm gonna pull up the shadows. But now we lost a lot of contrast and the photo looks too HDR. So I'm gonna pull the blacks down to bring back a little bit of the contrast. Pull the whites just a little bit up to like brighten and darken the photo, increasing the contrast. Okay, one more thing, I'm gonna add a little bit of clarity. This is what clarity do. You don't want to go too much with it, of course, and if you lower it, it will gonna be like buttery photo. We don't want that, so I'm gonna increase it just a little bit. And to bring back some of the color which is covered by the fog or the haze, I'm gonna dehaze the photo just a little bit. Then I'm gonna jump to the effects module. I always like to add just a little bit of vignette from here. Then I go to the lens correction. I add a little bit of vignette and pull the midpoint all the way. This is something I just do. Vignette is basically just a black circle around the photo. So I just a little bit of vignette. Okay, so now we adjusted like the brightness and the darkness. What I want to do now, I want to bring the eyes attracted to them. So I'm gonna reduce the exposure on the radial in the graduated filter. Then I'm gonna pull it from down. So now we're darkening the bottom part. I'm gonna reduce like the highlights, the whites, the blacks, make it less clear, and add some blue because I like adding blue to dark areas. So, and also I'm gonna pull it from the left side, but we don't want to darken the girl over here, so I'm gonna pull it back. And then again pull from the right to the left, pull from the corners just a little bit here and there, and we darkened like the bottom part of the photo. It's time to brighten their faces, so I'm gonna draw a radial filter. Make sure you increase exposure and draw a radial filter like that. I'm gonna increase the contrast so their faces are more contrasty, increase the clarity and the dehaze so everything pops out at that area. Okay, so now we need to add our light. The light source here is very distracting. It's coming from the door behind. So I'm gonna add some sort of a light source. I'm gonna like do something like that so we can see it. I'm gonna add a light source, something like that, which is coming from behind. But of course, this is too strong. I just did that to see for demonstration. So I'm gonna bring it back. And then this time I'm gonna dehaze the photo, like increases the haze because light comes with haze. And I'm gonna pop up the shadows, the blacks and the exposure, and we need to give color to the light. Obviously it's daytime, so I'm gonna add a lot of yellow and a lot of red, but we don't want that to be like targeting a lot of their skin, so I'm gonna move it up more so it doesn't affect them so much. This is affecting them so much, and this is good. And okay, so now we did our like lightening and darkening, so I'm gonna press OK and see what we did. So this is like, let me open, this is like the before, the after, before, after, a lot of like difference already. I'm gonna jump back to the camera raw filter. I like to jump 2 times after you did your brightness and darkness so that I can go to the split toning. I like to add blue, orange in the highlights, yellow, orange. It's okay if you go too strong, and I add like cyan blue in the shadows, and then you can bring them back like the saturation. If it's too strong, you can bring it back. And let's go to the sharpening. I like to sharpen the photo very strongly, something like 100, and then I'll hold Alt and do the masking so I can see which parts are being sharpened. I want like the details to be sharpened, that's why I do that. Then let's go to the curves or the tonal curve. Make sure you're on point, not parametric. I'm gonna pull this point up to make sure when I pull this one down, I'm not pushing anything to complete black. And then let's take the highlights and pump it up. Then I'm gonna go back to the basic module and let's see if there is anything we can change. I guess everything is great, so I'm gonna press OK. Okay, so this is our second photo right now. The first thing I didn't like is the orange we have here. Like it's all white in this photo. Why do we need to have like distracting orange? Oh, it has to be current and below. So I did the same. I just clone stamp it out just to make sure. And it's a new layer, so I just got rid of the orange. So by looking at this photo, the first thing, it's not centralized, so I need to centralize it just a little bit. Something like that. So the center is somewhere in the middle of the eyes and nose, and I'm gonna press OK. Also, I believe some of the bottom part here is useless, it's just wasted space. So I guess if we crop it something like that, it's gonna be much better. Okay, this photo, the problem with it, it's low resolution, so I can't do much to the skin. But how I saw this photo, I saw it's like it's dreamy and soft and stuff like that. So I got a feather PNG background, so that we have like some sort of feathers here and there. Let's do something like that, and another one here, but this one, let's make it smaller like this. And I'm gonna get rid of these here. So now we have two layers. This is one of them, the two on the right, and this is another one. Let's get rid of one of these. Which one? This one. Okay, so now we have 4 feathers, 2 behind her head, 2 in front of her. This one, I decided it will be closer to the camera, so I'm gonna layer via cut this one. So this one, let's call it closer. Let's go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and this one, since it's closer to the camera, let's give it like the most blur, and definitely it will be like the biggest size. And this one, it needs to be behind her head, so I'm gonna add a layer mask, and I'm gonna take my brush and I'm just gonna brush it off her hair. And since this one is fur, it also needs to be blurred, but this time it's gonna be a little bit softer. This one as well, let's brush it behind her head and let's blur, but just something really, oh, I have to blur the layer, not the layer mask. Don't fall into that problem. So I'm just gonna blur it very softly. And this one I'm just gonna layer via cut it, so it's on a separate layer. And this one I'm gonna leave it actually without any blurring, because it's the same distance of the girl, so it does not need blurring. So it's time now to bring attention to the girl. Control Alt Shift E on a new layer to merge everything together. Then I'm gonna go to filter, camera raw filter, where I edit most of my photos. I'm gonna bring down the highlights. You see how much detail we got into the background when we brought back the highlights. But in this case, we want this photo to be soft and dreamy, so I don't want so much detail distracting. So I'm gonna pull the whites up a lot. Then I'm gonna open the shadows just to see what's gonna look like, just a little bit, and bring down the black. Okay, so this photo needs like less color because it's all white and dreamy. So I'm gonna go to the color adjustments. I'm gonna pull down like the orange, the saturation of the orange and the yellow and the red just a little bit, so it's not so colorful. And now let's like darken around the photo. So I'm gonna reduce exposure. I'm gonna darken from down here, add a little bit of a blue tint from here and there when darkening the photo. I guess that's too dark, so I'm gonna pull them just a little bit away. And let's draw a circle around her face with increased clarity. So now the face has more clarity, and let's dehaze. So we bring back some, or let's try hazing it. No, dehaze is better. So we bring back some of a little bit of yellow to it. Okay, so let's press OK, see what we did. So this is like the before and the after. Before and the after, we brought a lot of attention here, but now it's sharp. I want it to be soft and dreamy, so I'm gonna Control Alt Shift A. I'm gonna reduce the clarity of the whole photo just a little bit. I'm gonna go to the sharpening. I'm gonna add some noise reduction so the photo gets more soft and more like a water painting. And in the effects, I'm gonna add some vignette, and in the camera I'm gonna add again some vignette. And I'm gonna press OK. So this is, let's see the before. This is the before and the after, before and the after. And that's it for the second photo. So the third photo, I wanted to show you the power of raw images. So this is a raw image. Once you drag it to Photoshop, it opens in the camera raw filter. As you can see, this is like a completely dark photo that we cannot see anything of it. But because it's a raw image, if you open the shadows all the way up, you see what's happening. All the details in the shadows are gonna be brought back. That's why you always shoot raw, so you can always bring back any missing details if you have exposure problems. So also I reduced the highlights to bring back some of the sky, and we lost contrast, so I bring back the contrast by increasing the whites and increasing the blacks, and probably it's gonna need some clarity because it has all the textures and the grass and everything, and dehaze of course to bring back some of the color, but I don't want to darken it so much with that. Let's try vibrance. We have like a skin tone problem in this photo. I'm gonna fix it like from outside, and I guess open image. So we fixed the problems. Now it's gonna open in Photoshop. So this is the image. The first thing, I believe the sky is too much, so I'm gonna crop this image just a little bit. I'll go 4:5, that's the Instagram ratio. And okay, let's try moving it just a little bit like that. Okay, I guess we're good. Time to fix like the skin problem. I'm gonna add a hue saturation. I'm gonna press the colorize, make sure it's skin color somewhere here, and I'm gonna press Ctrl I. Then I'm gonna take a brush, white brush, and I'm gonna paint over the parts of the skin. Don't worry if it looks bad, of course we're gonna fix it. And I'll press X to switch from white to black to start erasing the wrong parts, like on the eyes. We don't want skin on the eyes. We don't want skin on like the glass. The glass is wearing. And okay, let's try lowering the opacity of this one a lot. Even more. It's too orange, so I'm gonna move it just a little bit to the yellow. That's too greenish. Somewhere here is good. So now, as you can see, we did like a lot of fixation. It's already looking good, but I'll lower the opacity just a little bit. Another one I want to do is for the lips, because the lips are like, we saturated the face and we didn't for the lips. So I'm gonna colorize lips. The lips are usually like very dark red, so I'm gonna press Ctrl I. Then with my white brush, I'm gonna do the lips. And of course lower the opacity very strongly. So now let's take a look on what we did to the skin. You see it was all blown out with no color. Now we brought back the color in his face. Okay, so with this photo I'm not gonna do much, I guess. Just like a small sky replacement. So I'm gonna take the magic wand. I'm gonna select the sky over here. Because the sky looks somehow boring, I'm gonna mask it, Ctrl I. Then I'm gonna add this sky. It's like much more interesting than the one we had before. But as you can see, we have problem here with cutting the sky because we couldn't cut it using the magic wand. So what you do in this case is you stand on your layer, you go to select color range, and you choose this area. The white here in the photo are the parts are gonna be cut, so I'm gonna press OK. So now it gave me a selection of it. So I'm just gonna stand on the layer, and with my black brush I'm gonna delete. I'm standing, sorry, on the layer mask, not on the layer itself, and just delete these areas. And let's see now when we add the old sky, this is way better. Okay, it's time now to do like the final adjustments to the photo. What I always like is add a curves adjustment layer, pull the blacks up, create some contrast by pulling the shadows down and bringing the highlights up. I like actually the color now of this photo. The colors are good, but one thing I don't like, I'll show you. I'll press Ctrl R for ruler. Make sure your ruler in percent, and I'm gonna pull it till it's on 50%. So this is the center of the photo. I don't like that this is not in the center, so I'm gonna take all the layers and I'm just gonna move them so that they are in the center. Like in composition, you either have the photo like centered or you have it on the rule of thirds somewhere here. But like just a little bit slight from the center, that's really bad for the eyes. So I'm gonna press Ctrl T and I'm just gonna pull it like that, so I can move it without like losing any pixels on the right side. And once you're done, I'm gonna pull the ruler back again, Ctrl R to get rid of it. Okay, if I had time for this photo, I probably would have added something here, maybe some sort of like telling a story using this rope. This is what I like about this photo. It tells some sort of a story. We have this very weird piece of like wood, which is having something hanging from it. So you could have used that in your story in the photo. So now I'm gonna add a new layer, Control Alt Shift E. So I merge everything into that layer. Then I go to Filter, Camera Raw Filter. And in the camera raw filter, let's try to bring attention to that area. So I'm gonna radial filter, I'm gonna add some exposure, I'm gonna draw like my radial, and the radial is gonna be between his face and that thing he's looking at. I'm gonna increase the contrast, add some warm colors to it, increase the clarity and the dehaze of it. Then I'm gonna do the opposite by graduated filter. I'm gonna darken the unimportant parts, add blue to them, unimportant parts on the left and right. We need to do like some sort of movement in this photo. How I do movement in photo is I add darkness from one side and then I add brightness from the opposite side. So the darkness is from down right in this case, the brightness is gonna be from top left. So I'm gonna do some brightness here, I'm gonna dehaze, I'm gonna add some yellow and magenta, and I'm gonna pull from here. So now we have some sort of light direction coming from above, and let's emphasize that light by pulling up the shadows and the blacks and reducing clarity, because when you have a lot of light, things are not that clear. And let's add color to it, and if it's too strong you can always pull it away. Let's press OK, see how things are going on so far. So let's see the before and after. So this is like the before, this is the after. Before, after, much more interesting now. So for the last two edits, I'm gonna go very quickly through how I edited them. I pre-edited them so that we can save some time. Okay, so this is the photo I got from Kirtan Gosalia. First thing, I'm gonna separate the sky. So I separated the sky and I added this new sky photo. This is the sky photo I got from unsplash.com. And this is the castle now. So what I want to do now is that now I have a sky where the light is on one part and the darkness on the other part. We have orange light, dark teal color. So I'm gonna put over the church here orange color from the side of the light and dark blue color from the opposite side. And then this one I added some highlights to the clouds here, just some highlights with that orange color. And then I added this model. This is the one I used, but this is how he looked like after I cut everything. And when I looked at the surface below of him, it's kind of reflective, so I had to add a reflection of him on that surface. And to adjust him, he was too bright, so I just darkened things out. I added some orange highlights on his face and some dark blue on the other side. Then I added some again blue on top of the whole image from that side and orange bright from the other side. Then I merged everything together in camera raw filter, did what we did in almost every photo, darken from the not important parts and brighten and increase clarity to the important part. And for the final edit, this is the best image that I have got. I really like the Taj Mahal. I'm gonna show you what I did in this image exactly. Okay, the first thing, I did a hue saturation trying to get rid of like the blues around, but it didn't work out so well. So I decided I will darken the whole photo while making sure the middle parts are not darkened, they are brightened. So I darkened the whole image, then I brightened the middle part. Then after that, what I did was I wanted to add like some color highlights on the edges of the door. So I added these two layers, one of them in overlay mode, one of them in screen mode over those parts. Then I added this light beam. If you want to learn how I create these light beams, I have an amazing tutorial on YouTube where I show you exactly how to create these lights. Okay, But then after I did all the lighting and everything, I realized that the photo is too warm. The face got like so reddish and everything was so yellow and red. So I wanted to have some balance in the colors. This is where I created the color balance layer. If you see here in the shadows, I added a lot of cyan and blue, which are opposite to warm colors. So I added them so that you see what happens when I add them. Like the photo, like it's not warm anymore. The warm parts are only the highlights and the dark parts are blue, compensating the very warm tones I have. And here, this one, it was like too blue compared to the other parts, so I added a layer. I sampled like the same color from here, like sampling the color from here and painting with it here, and change the color mode to color. This is like how the layer look like, and this is when you change it to the color mode. And then the hue saturation, just to get rid of some of like the colors here at the back. I had some reds and blues. Reds and blues attract the eye because they are opposite of what we're having. This is like all beige color, so when you have red and blue, it attracts the eyes, so I had to remove some of it. And finally, I merged everything into the camera raw filter. I'll show you what I did exactly. Let's merge everything. Merge everything. This is like the before and the after the camera raw. You see I flipped the photo a little bit above. I'll show you how I did that. It's from the filter, camera raw filter. You go to the grid here on the top and then you start playing around with these like. So this is what I did. I brought the vertical just a little bit down and I changed the aspect ratio of the photo to make it more like in the horizontal and the vertical part, and bring up the scale so we get rid of like the edges of the photo. And finally, as you can see, I did just like a very slight color adjustments, made this part just a little bit brighter. And that's it for the tutorial. I really hope you guys enjoyed watching me editing these 5 photos. I'm sorry I couldn't do any more. As you can see, the time of this video is so long already. I couldn't do any more than 5, and I didn't want to do 10 very quickly and not showing you all the behind the scenes of how I edit. And I did all of this because of my 2019 goal I had before. If you remember, I added them to my story. I always wanted to give back because I realized the more I give back to people, the more I get back from you guys. I wanted to thank you all for helping me reach my 100k mark, because without you this was not possible, and I promise that I'll always try to give back to you more and more. I'm doing my best to make my tutorials better, to help teach you guys how to use Photoshop and express your ideas the way I do. So thank you for sticking around this long, and if you have any question or anything anytime, make sure you DM me. I do reply every single DM that I get. And see you later, guys.